Good morning. Welcome back to Early Riser Workshop. Today we're preparing to cut stock for our picture frame keepsake box. What I'd like to show you is that this panel that I'll be using came from the home center, 3/4 inches thick, 7.5 by 48. But I only need one strip at 3/4 of an inch. So let's cut that first. Okay, I have the planer set up now to begin shaving a little bit of material from either side of the stock as I go through multiple passes through the planer. When I get close to the 1/2 inch though, I'm going to shift from the gauge on the machine to my caliper to make sure that I dial right into 1/2 inch for my final pass. Now that our stock is dimensioned at 1/2 inch, and we're ready to take it to the table saw, and we'll cut that second piece at 1 3/8 wide. The remaining piece is just over 4 1/4 inches, and I want to trim it right on 4 1/4 inches. I've put the crosscut sled on the table saw and I'm getting prepared to cut the blanks about 1/8 inch long for each of the mitered frame pieces. But I've taken the time to use some blue tape and mark each piece in order: long A, short A, long B, and short B. The reason I did that is I want the pattern of the grain to follow around the frame. And this way, after I cut the pieces and they're scattered on the bench, I can still reassemble them in the right order. I've also indicated the direction with which I want the miters to go, and that will help to ensure that I don't accidentally flip the piece over. So I'm going to cut the blanks to their approximate length next. The next step is to cut a rabbet on the lower inside edge of the top mitered frame pieces. And this, you can see, will be this area here. Now to do that, I've set up the blade to be 1/4 inch high and 1/4 inch away from the fence. We're ready for the next step, and that's to cut the miter on this edge of all of the blanks. I want to make sure that I keep the tape reference in alignment with the miter gauge, and I set the stop for the first cut of the long pieces. We'll do all of these next. Okay, with all those edges done, it's time to do the other end. And by the reference, it has to go here. So to accomplish that, I'm just going to turn the piece upside down, and it puts the cut here. I've already set the stop for the long pieces. With the blade set exactly at 45 degrees, I've now put my miter gauge back into the table saw and brought up my stock. And you'll notice that I've once again used blue tape to reference important information. First of all, the side with the blue tape is the face, or the side that I'll see on the box. So I want to make sure that my miters go in this direction for each of the pieces. Also indicating long A, short A, long B, short B. Once they're cut, I'll know how to align the pieces to make the grain pattern work. We'll cut the first miter now. All right, we're ready to do the other ends. I've set up the stop block, blue tape, face down, ready to go with my miter gauge. We'll do that next. We're going to take all four sides, and on the inside lower edge, we're going to use the table saw to put a groove to accept the bottom. Before I cut the bottom piece, I want to mock up the dimensions of the box. And the easiest way to do that is by using a straight edge as a guide, lining the pieces up against the straight edge and butting them together. And then taking a piece of masking tape, I can temporarily lock these pieces together the way they will be when I get ready to glue. So I'll repeat this process and I'll show you what it looks like. So here's the box held together by tape, and you can see the groove on the inside edge, and it's about 3/16 deep all the way around. So I'm going to add 1/8 of an inch for each side on the length and the width, and then double check the dimensions on the inside, in this case exactly 10.5 by 8.5. So I'm ready to cut my bottom now. For the bottom, I'm going to use this piece of 1/8 inch plywood, oak plywood, and the first step is to rip it to the width, 8 3/4 inches. Now we're going to use a crosscut sled to cut a section that has a pleasing pattern here near the middle. Here we have all the pieces for our box. I've taken one side off the middle, and I've sanded the edges of the bottom to make it a little easier to slide into the slots. But by taking this piece off, opening these a little bit, I can then put the bottom into the back slot, carefully close the two, bring in the fourth side, matching the miters, and then tightening up the tape. Now I can see how the box fit with the bottom. Just as I did for the sides of the box, I'm going to line up the frame pieces against a straight edge, and then taking pieces of tape and making sure that they're butted tightly. I'll just put the piece of tape down and press it on nice and tight. Okay. So now it's just a matter of sliding the pieces together. And I have the frame. So now we have the box taped together, and you'll see on the top of the lid where we put the rabbit, that's there to receive the photograph and glass. Now I picked up a inexpensive plastic frame that came with the glass and the little hardboard piece in the back. And so this is the basis of my measurements, and this will simply set in the back. I'll show you how we hold that in a minute. For now, I'm just going to tape it. Okay. This sets like that. And the next will be to measure and cut the hinge. I'm going to pre-install the hinges now by taking the hinge into the mortise and clamping a scrap trim on the side. And then using a center punch, I'll locate the middle. And then taking the very small screws, now I'm going to line up for drilling the holes in the lid for the hinge. And to accomplish that, I've set the mortised hinges here on the long edge. I'm going to take a piece of tape and force it into the crack. Spin it around so you can see and support. And this is where these hinges need to mount. And so now that that's done, I can take my center punch. Okay, now I'll take the tape back off. I'll drill my holes. Okay, now we have the full box assembled with tape, but it is functional, and I like the way it turned out. I do want to add one little design element by lightening the top and the bottom by adding a little bit of the chamfer. I'll do that next on the table saw. Well, that didn't go as smoothly as I wanted. I left some saw marks that'll have to come out with some sanding. But all in all, I think the design and the appearance of the box is exactly what I was after. The lid is nice and light, has a nice feel to it. I gave a little bit of a shadow line and lightness to the bottom. Now the last step I have to do is to put little clips to hold the glass and the picture in place. So let me get a close-up and I'll show you what I'm going to try. Open this up. And this piece back and forth until it breaks. And then close this one. Now I have a little clip. Well, here it is, finally all done. The lid and the stays. The overall design is nice and light. What I didn't share with you is that this is going to be a kit that a family member will put together, glue it, sand it, stain it, and present it as a gift. So I'm going to take this completely apart into pieces, package it, and send it to them. That's it for now. Thank you for watching Early Riser Workshop.